Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Teacher Empowerment Summit. My name is Austin, and I'm here with Carin Paupore. Carin has 13 years of experience working in adult education. She's currently the Director of Service and Learning at City Year Milwaukee. And she loves that teaching adults often means that you're facilitating conversations so that they actually teach each other. So, hello, welcome to the summit, Carin.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to have this conversation and to talk about this.
Yeah, so I know that you have a really cool demonstration to take us through, but before we get to that, I want to ask you the number one question of the summit that everybody's asking and everybody's just waiting to hear. What is your number one most empowering message for teachers today?
Oh, I think with just thinking about today's, like very specifically right now, today's climate is just that piece of connection, connecting with our students. Our students need us more than ever, and connecting with each other as teachers and as human beings. Just keeping connected and bringing joy into every day, because we really, even just the smallest moments of joy are really important for our well-being right now and the well-being of our students. Yeah.
I really like that. And several of our other speakers have also spoken about joy and bringing that into our lessons in our classrooms. And it's such an important message, especially these days when we're connecting digitally more than physically.
Yeah, I think that that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Also, is that digital connection, um, how to bring elements of joy into that.
Well, why don't we go ahead and jump in? How do we bring joy into our digital connections?
Okay, well, so what I'm going to do this session, I'm going to actually share my screen, and Austin, I'm going to have you be a participant in a meeting that I'm leading. Well, really in this presentation. And as I share my screen, I created a presentation that I wanted to have visuals, and so also we might get a cameo appearance from my cat. I will try to make that not happen, but cats do what cats do. So I titled this presentation, 10 Activities for Engaging and Interactive Virtual Meetings. So this session and like what we're going to talk about right now has, hopefully this will give your audience some ideas of things they might be able to bring into their virtual classrooms as well. However, this is really focused on that connection with other teachers, and how teachers can be connecting with their teams, how leaders can be, and administration can be connecting with their teams, and how we can be working together and having these online meetings that we know we are all having, like a million Zoom meetings, right? Back to back all day. That is my day every day. And how can we make those engaging? So that's what we're gonna talk about. And so I guess because the audience isn't live with us here, we won't be able to engage that way, but Austin, you are going to be a participant in this presentation, and we'll be demonstrating kind of what that looks like for each tool, that each 10 of the 10 activities we're going to go through. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, and we will get started.
Great, I can't wait.
Share on Google means share the link. Present means, there we go, okay. Okay. So let's talk about the standard Zoom call real quick. Also, I should say I am referring to tools that are very specific to Zoom. It is one of the most popular platforms right now for virtual meeting spaces. And so I'm going to very specifically talk about Zoom. A lot of what I talk about could be done through Microsoft Teams or even through Skype, because it involves an external document. So let's talk about the standard Zoom call. Have you ever been in a virtual meeting that only 3 of 10 voices were heard in? You're there, the same 3 people talking over and over and over. The other 7, you're not even really sure if they're there. Have you ever spent an entire meeting writing emails knowing that you could get away with it and that you weren't really going to get called on, so you didn't really have to like engage in it? I'm gonna admit, I also write emails during virtual meetings sometimes. The goal of this session is to make it so that that's not what people want to be doing. They want to be engaging in your meeting. Have you ever been the presenter asked a question and gotten a silence that outlasted your wait time. There's something about the virtual space that can get awkward as well until suddenly a couple people all start talking at the exact same time, right? That happens all the time.
Yeah. Oh, can I just say real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Not to interrupt, but it's so common where if you're in a physical meeting space, you can read visual cues to know when you can jump in and say something. But through a Zoom call or just through a camera, you can't always pick up on that. And so a lot of people will tend to just sit back and not say anything because they don't want to interrupt somebody, because that's, that's rude. That's not how we do things.
Exactly. We lose so much of our like interpersonal ability to read a situation is completely wiped out in that virtual setting. And so there's that piece of silence, the not wanting to interrupt. There's also that, and some people just don't feel comfortable seeing themselves on screen or on camera. And it's also, if you're not really wanting to engage, it's pretty easy, depending on the number of people on that call, to kind of just sit back and not engage. Whereas in person, it's much easier for a facilitator to read the room, to remember like, oh, we've heard from that side a lot, but we haven't heard from this other side a lot, and then name that. So it can be much more difficult to do that as a facilitator and a presenter in a virtual space. So you're absolutely right, we lose those cues. And the last question is, have you ever been so bored during a virtual meeting that you almost, or you did, fall asleep? I'm going to be real transparent with your audience. I did actually start feeling a little bit of this last week in a meeting that I was on that was not engaging at all. So if any of that resonates with you, then this is the right session. If you want to make your meetings that you lead and bring your leaders ideas for creating engaging and interactive meetings virtually, then this session is going to give you a lot of ideas to combat any of these things. Because your virtual meetings, so these don't have to be boring. Austin, I'm just curious, have you been on a virtual meeting? Have you been on like really interactive meetings virtually that weren't boring, that like where you felt like, yep, I can really contribute and I can get involved?
I've been on a few, but most of them, it's just one person talking and everybody else listening.
Right, exactly. So that doesn't have to, it actually doesn't have to be that way. So we're going to talk about spicing it up by using things like warm-ups, interactive virtual discussion methods, and ideas for gathering feedback, opinions, and votes. Something that I'm going to name right now is that I know that warm-ups, the word is up there, so I'm just going to name it right now. They get a bad name, but I think that your audience is going to hear me. I'm going to talk a lot about bringing joy in, because right now, like I mentioned, in what I think is most important for teachers to remember is that joy can be hard to find right now for a lot of different people. And so even the small moments of bringing in joy is really, really important for our mindset. And so warm-ups are a great place to do that. And so I just want to name right now, I know it says warm-ups. I know that sometimes people hear that and they roll their eyes. They are really important. We'll talk about that more when we get there. Okay, so why spice it up? I just want to really bring this home. The idea that when we're in a virtual space without those visual cues that you mentioned, Austin, it's really easy for people who maybe don't step up as often or are less assertive in the meeting space. It's really easy for them their voice to kind of be lost. It's harder for the facilitator to remember that person, and it's really easy for them to just kind of like also sit back, but we want to hear their voice. And so when we bring in engage interactive ways of engaging in the content in the meeting, we're bringing that opportunity forward to everyone, even if they're a bit more reserved. We'll also find that there's going to be less talking over one another. You know those moments when you're in the call and then like 3 people start talking at once and then everybody's like, no, you go. And then it's completely silent. And then they all start talking again at the same time. You know that like, you, me. We're going to do our best to avoid that by using activities that help the facilitator get through the meeting. This also is going to provide opportunities for those who are camera shy, who may not feel comfortable seeing themselves on a screen. Maybe they have their camera off. They're going to be able to comfortably participate because we're going to provide opportunities for everyone to participate in a way that's anonymous and that's like in a written form. They don't have to be overly vocal or overly assertive to have their voice heard. And finally, it's fun. Like, who doesn't need more fun right now and more joy? So the tools that we're going to talk about specifically, these are all related to Zoom, which is chat engagement. We're going to talk about using the annotation tool, the whiteboard annotation, and how to use an external slide deck or document to build in engagement into your meeting. I do want to name another really powerful tool in Zoom, and like you can do this with Microsoft Teams as well, are breakout spaces. We're not going to be able to demonstrate that here today, but I just wanted to put it on there as like once this presentation gets your ideas flowing, I think you'll see all these areas where breakout spaces could be really helpful. So let's start with Zoom chat. Austin, this is where you're going to start getting involved. And so, oops, I clicked
Okay,
on.
I'm ready.
You're ready. Okay, so using Zoom chat, is a great way to start engagement before the meeting starts. So really set the tone of your meeting or your session or your training by being logged in earlier than most participants are going to arrive, so that when participants arrive, they see something to get them started engaging. So you're setting that tone of like, let's start sharing, let's start building community, let's start engaging. This is also going to help you out as you're getting yourself ready. Your session's starting, but you don't need to be there for it. And you're gonna, it's gonna help a little bit with like those stragglers, those people who you know are gonna hop in a few minutes late because they're in back-to-back meetings or maybe they're having a tech issue. So this is very simple. What this looks like is you're gonna say, like, you just have a slide. I'm gonna move that for a moment. You have a slide up. And so when people log into Zoom, this automatically opens up and it says, welcome, as we wait to start, share something bringing you joy today in the chat. Your prompt here can be whatever you want it to be, but I talk a lot about choosing joy and bringing joy in, and so this is my prompt for the moment. I'm gonna open the chat and just see what's bringing Austin joy today.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, okay. So you would come in, and when you sit down, you'll see that a lot of people are sharing joy, that you have a conversation already going. This allows that like kind of pre-meeting chatter, and we're already elevating our mood to get started. And so I might, as the facilitator, sit down and be like, okay, welcome everyone, glad we're here, let's get started. Let's just take a look at some of the things bringing us joy today. So we're adding that buffer time at the beginning, but it's meaningful and it's bringing and building community. Like, I know Austin had popcorn for breakfast. I love popcorn. I would love to have popcorn for breakfast. That sounds delicious. So now as the facilitator, I can read the chat. Everyone else can read the chat. We're already engaging. We've set that tone. Austin, does that make sense for?
No, yeah, I like that because it helps us to replace that pre-meeting conversation that we're missing out so often when we go online with our meetings.
I love that. Okay. So next, what I'm going to do, how I structured this is I want to point out a tool, and then I'm going to show a couple ways in which that tool in Zoom could be useful. So this one is the annotation tool. It's a couple things to note. The annotation tool at the top of the screen, so there usually is a box or there's something on top of people's screens. If you go up, there's a drop down, comes down. In there you have this is where you might mute or stop video. Or this might be at the bottom. I'm realizing it might look different on my screen because I'm the one sharing. I think usually when I'm in, it's actually at the bottom of the screen. But you click the annotate. That opens up this new box. You have a mouse. You can type text on a screen. We're going to show you that in a minute. You can free draw. We're going to show you that. You can use stamps. Spotlight, I think if you use this arrow, it shows your name. You can erase things. You can change colors. And, so you can do all these things here. Okay, so I'm going to close that for just a moment because I need to, but we're gonna ask our participants to open their annotation tool, and we're gonna use that and demonstrate what that looks like through some warm-ups. Now, again, I mentioned earlier, I know that people eye roll when they hear the word warm-up or like icebreaker, and I know, but it's also common practice in our classrooms, right? And with our students to be using warm-ups, to be bringing, like energizing our brains in that way. And one of the things I love about adult ed, and that I think adult ed, there's a lot of misconceptions about adult education, is that adults need that too. We need it. We need the fun. We need the joy. We need to be able to have a little fun in our day. I mean, my gosh, as adults especially, like we have so many serious things going on all the time. A little bit of fun is really good. It also is helping us bring community and build connection and belonging in the virtual space that can otherwise feel pretty isolating. Even though you see people, it just feels more isolating virtually. So Austin, are you ready with that annotation tool?
Yes, I've got my annotation tools up. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so we're gonna do a couple warm-ups here. Like I mentioned, we're just gonna use these to these can be used to capture interest, to set tone, a couple options. So our first warm-up option, this is very simple, but one of my favorites. Where would you like to be? So we got some 4 amazing natural options here. If you were to be in one of these places instead of in your home, as most of us are right now, where would you want to be? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that annotation tool and I'm going to go to the stamp. I'm going to have my audience go to the stamp. I always choose the star, but you know, everybody can choose what they want. And then I would just click where I would want to be. And you can see it puts a star there. So Austin, where would you want to be? Oh, Austin is all over the desert area, the high desert down here. Okay. So,
Yeah, I like the look of that exposed rock back there.
I bet you do. You're a rock climber, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I love these ferns. I can smell this forest. I'm ready to be there right now. But you know, in the end, you end up with kind of seeing like where people want to be. Now, an option here as a facilitator is you can say, okay, it looks like we have a lot of mountain lovers in our audience, and just kind of move on. Or really nice, a great way to facilitate through this activity is to say, I'd love 3 people to share why they chose what they chose. And what's cool about this, you can do this in 2 ways. Now you can just open it up and say, could I get 3 volunteers to share? And then anyone else wants to share, you can drop it in the chat. So now you have people sharing out loud and in the chat. That can lead to some of that awkward who's going to do what. Another option is to go have your images, like the people's faces in gallery mode, and you could like call on 3 people. So I'm sure you've done that in your classrooms where you just like draw a name, or you just kind of call on random people, and so students know that you do that, so they always have to be prepared. That's another way to keep people engaged in your meeting. It's really your choice on how you go through that, but it's a great opportunity to just bring people in and say, hey, you know, why did you choose the forest? Why did you choose the mountains? Whatever. I think if I do this with this arrow, the spotlight, and I do the spotlight arrow, it will tell me the name too. So you could ask your participants to go to spotlight and then go to arrow and put it, and then you could see who ranked what, and you could say, hey, Carin, will you tell me why you chose the beach?
Cool. So it can either be anonymous or personalized.
It can be anonymous or personalized. So it's a really powerful tool. It's really fun. Our next one, it's a very similar concept, but instead here we're going to use some pop culture. We're going to bring in feeling, like how are you feeling this week? Or how are you feeling today? I think right now, especially, our feelings tend to be fluctuating a lot. Some days are great, other days are like full of difficulty. And so this is just another way of doing the same thing. Now we have all our stars on here. I want to say sorry, there we go. The participants can erase theirs, or as the facilitator, I can clear all drawings. So it's just under annotation, clear. Sorry, every time I wanna, okay, I did it. So our next one, Austin, I'm gonna have you participate in this as well, is the open-ended text prompt. So this is something that I'm using as a warm-up in this case, but we went through a retreat the other day at work that we were doing a lot of brainstorming and a lot of consensus building and a lot of just like getting ideas out there. And we used this technique, this activity, several times in a row with a different prompt each time. And so what this looks like is you'll want to go back to annotate, and you're going to ask your audience to go to the text tool. So this one right here. And so Austin, go to that text tool, and will you tell me, get that out of the way, what question are you most looking for this presentation to answer?
Okay.
So I'm typing something down here. It's not going to show up for everybody until I click off of it. And now it should appear on the text. Here, I'm going to do one more just to make sure it's really clear. But now everybody in your audience, great, exactly. So then it just kind of appears and you end up with this opportunity to see kind of where everybody's at. Again, as the facilitator, it's your choice. You could, I would recommend giving people a moment to look at things. A really fun thing to do right now is now let's see how everybody else are feeling. You can tell your audience, hey, if somebody else wrote something that you love, put a heart stamp next to it. So you can kind of see like generally like where your audience is feeling, if something's really resonating with them, if there's something to dive into more, this tool could be used for that. And then again, you could also use this as an opportunity to be like, oh, who wrote How to Keep My Audience Engaged? Could you share more with us about what you meant? Could you elaborate? Right, so as the facilitator, you can then, you know, kind of call on people, you can get more information, and then that gets people engaged and actively speaking. And everybody knows in that moment who's supposed to speak. Like the person who wrote that is the person who will speak, so there won't be that clamoring over one another. Okay, I'm gonna clear these drawings. I'm gonna close this and move to our next. We're gonna do one more warm up, but this is, I wanted to bring in the Zoom whiteboard. This is actually a very specific type way to share one screen. And it only works on shared screen. And so the presenter, so that's me, what I'm gonna need to do right now is I'm gonna need to unshare my screen. And then when I reshare my screen, it's going to offer me the option of sharing as a whiteboard. And so what that's gonna do is it's just gonna make a blank screen that Austin can draw on. And so using, again, the annotation tool. So I'm gonna stop share for just a moment with your audience. I'm gonna reshare, and I'm clicking, it says whiteboard, so I'm just clicking that, and it gives us this blank. Do you see this blank whiteboard, Austin?
Oh, I do, yep.
Great. So I'm realizing what I wanted to do. The activity is draw a picture of your favorite animal. So I might, you know, so there's the draw tool, so you can choose from some things here. These are some shapes you can draw, or thicker lines, thinner lines. You can change your color. I'm gonna draw an iguana. It's an iguana or a dragon. Anyway, but it's just a fun way that you can have people draw, get creative. You could definitely use this for team builders. And just a fun way to like get things started in the day.
Yeah, you can even, well, if you have a touch screen, you can draw on the screen with your finger. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, so if you have a touch screen, even better. That's amazing that you could, that's awesome that you can do that. I didn't know that. Austin, I think in the next one, you should see if you can use all the annotation tools with your touch screen. I think that would be really neat to find out. I don't know that because I don't have a touch screen, but so I'm drawing with my mouse over here. But this is just a tool I wanted to just bring in real quick just to point out that something that exists, that was just a blank screen. Another way that your audience could do that, I am going to clear our drawings. Sorry, Kristen. I'm going to stop share and go back to our presentation. So another way that you could do that would be to have on your PowerPoint, to have just a blank slide, right? And I'm realizing that might even be more, it might even be a little bit easier because then it's just built into your presentation. So here was my intro slide for the draw your favorite animal. Again, some silly things on there because silly is fun and adults like silly. Like we have to look for those opportunities to not take ourselves quite so seriously and to just like laugh a little bit. Like this little guy with the huge ears, I don't know if it's a puppy, a Chihuahua puppy maybe, or if it's a wild animal, I don't know, but it's so cute. It's got huge ears and it's making me smile. Any opportunity to smile. Okay, so we're gonna move on into a couple different activities for learning your audience. This is just, again, using the same tools that we've already used, but just different way to do it. And so what I'm actually gonna do is I am going to share the slide deck. So what we're gonna do right now is I'm going to introduce an outside resource into my meeting that is going to allow my audience to both follow along on Zoom, but also engage through the cloud in different content. So here's how I'm gonna do that. I am going to stop from present mode, and I am actually gonna go to share. I am using Google Slides specifically because we have access to it. It's free. I know a lot of schools are using Google. And so what you wanna do is you wanna get a shareable link, but make sure, this is pro tip number one, make sure that anyone with the link can edit. That's going to be really important to making sure that your audience can see this. So I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to go to my chat and I'm just going to paste that link into the chat. So now everybody in my meeting can click on that link and open up the presentation that I put together for them to interact inside. So Austin, I'm going to have you open that up.
Sure. It looks like the link came through, but it's not a clickable link. I actually have to copy it and then paste it into my browser. Which is fine. Because we're all adults here doing this. Wouldn't it be a little bit challenging to try to do this with students if you have to allow editing for the students? It seems like you'd be opening yourself up for sabotage.
Yeah. I think, and like I said, I think that there might be ways with a Google Classroom or things to make interactive offline documents, but I do think that, like I mentioned at the very beginning, a lot of what I'm talking about might provide ideas for students, but this is a lot about how teachers can be connecting with other teachers. Okay, so now do you have the slide deck open, Austin?
I do.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to present mode. So this is an example of a way to learn more about your audience. Okay, so Austin is inside my presentation on the cloud, and he can actually move any of these. Here, I'll just get out of presentation mode so I can do it too. So he can actually move any of these little icons that I made. And so this is a way that you can say, okay, what are some topics and what is my audience's familiarity with those topics? So Austin, could you just drag and drop a smiley face or a triangle or an X based on your familiarity with the topic that we listed?
Okay.
So if we had a bunch of people in here, we would kind of see, do we have generally people feel good about this, or do maybe people need a little more help? And helps us as a facilitator just know like where we might want to spend more time, or a future topic that maybe people would want that we should be talking about. So you could also do something like this with the annotation tool, where people could use the star or the heart or the X annotation tool, and you could just get a snapshot real quick. In this case, I'm going to have this for later. So this is all in my PowerPoint presentation now. And so my Google Slides presentation. So when I go back, I now will have this like permanently, versus the annotation tool, you would need to take a screenshot if you want that information later. The next one I want us to bring us into is community building. So I know there's a lot of activities, but we're going to go through the next couple a little quickly. But it's just this idea of like, because being virtual can feel really isolating, we have to look for those opportunities to build community, to build belonging, and to connect. And so having community building activities is really important. This could look like warm-ups. It could also look like something that's inserted in the middle of a meeting to get people's energy, like an energizer. And so we're gonna look at this. I'm gonna go into presentation mode. So here's what we have. I'm presenting through Zoom. Austin can see my Zoom, but Austin also has this presentation open. So this is an instruction slide. So we're gonna play a little bit of this or that as a fun way to work things out. I recognize that this actual slide I took from my work, and it's a seasonal thing, so it's from actually the fall or winter, but the concept remains. Your this or that can be whatever you want. And so, Austin, I'd like for you to go into the PowerPoint deck. And what this looks like is you can see on my screen on the left, I have several slides that are identical. And so what you would do is you would have each of your participants, of your meeting participants, select a different slide. So I can see Austin's here. He's hanging out on that first slide. So I'm gonna go to the second slide. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually click in and edit this slide. So Austin, I'm gonna have you go into your slide where it says name, role, city. I want you to click in there and actually edit the slide.
Now I'll just type my name, my role, and where I live.
Yep, where it says name, role, location, type your name, your role, and location.
Okay.
I'm just gonna abbreviate, and I'm in Milwaukee. And what this does is now you can have everybody working on their own slide at their own pace at the same time. Provide time for your group to edit their slide. In this case, we have this or that. So I'm actually gonna do some editing. I'm gonna circle my this or that's, and I'm gonna copy and paste. So again, these are some higher level skills, right? You're gonna you may not do this with students, but you could also, I could see you being able to use the annotation tool to do something similar with a this or that type of activity where everybody just annotates, do they like fall or winter, and you can kind of compare your audience. So let's go back, and now let's see what Austin is doing up here. He's Austin, Summit Organizer, Milwaukee. He likes fall over winter. You can get the idea. But the idea is that in the end, you have a slide deck that has all of this information for all of your participants, and you can then have people actually go back and comment. This is a really powerful aspect of this because I can go to Austin's thing and I can add in a comment and say, I'm in Milwaukee too. And now I've commented. So now we have conversation and dialogue going on within the PowerPoint presentation, which is really fun. And it's directed, I can direct directly say something to Austin that is visible to everybody, but that is directed to him. So I just wanted to give that idea of like a way to community build. I'm gonna keep us moving on, but Austin, do you have any questions about that?
No, I really like this. And I think it's really cool. You mentioned this a few minutes ago, how this is more of a permanent record as compared to the Zoom annotation stuff, where the facilitator or anybody else can come in later and look at what happened in the meeting and what people were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's just more permanent, right? Without that extra step of having to take a screenshot of like every single slide. Okay, so let's move into, I'm going back into presentation mode. You can see Austin's things here. I'm gonna jump on down to group brainstorm and collaboration, because I think this is, when I think about teachers especially, I think about how important it is and how valuable that space can be when you're able to sit with other teachers who teach your same subject or your same grade, and like talk with them and plan together and think through different activities and learn from their promising practices. So this is a way to do that virtually in a virtual meeting space. I'm going to show a couple opportunities here. However, most activities can be done virtually. And I think that's the thing that I hope you feel empowered through this presentation, to know that you can probably make your activity using these tools. You can probably make it a virtual activity as well. That's just as fun as it is in person. So I'm going to show the stoplight reflection, and just so everybody knows, we're not actually going to go in and edit it. I just decided it would take us a little too long, and I already know my presentation is a little long. So maybe not, hopefully not, but I hope that it's really full of value and that you can like go back and look at different activities to get those ideas. So we're not actually going to go through the stoplight reflection, but I wanted to show you what this might look like. In this case, green is going to be a problem that you identified and then the solution to it. What you're doing, let me actually just move here. Basically, it's the same concept as the last one, where everybody will have you duplicate these slides. So there's multiple of the same slide. Everybody jumps on and grabs their own slide. And then the idea behind this is we're documenting now those promising practices. So here's a problem I had that I figured out a great solution to. So I described the problem right here and I type my solution here. Here's a problem I'm still fine-tuning. Here's what I've tried. It's, maybe not fully there, but there's something there. It's maybe working. We're getting somewhere. And here's the place I'm feeling stuck. Here's my problem. Here's what I've tried. I've got nothing. Asking your other participants, what do they have? So in this activity, you have each person takes their own slide, and then again, this the comment tool is very key, because then people can come back, they can learn like, oh, I have that problem, I should try that solution. Or they can be like, oh, I had that problem, I figured it out, here's what I did, and now I can leave a comment on this person's slide. And any of us can go back to it and read everyone else's, and we've just shared a lot of promising practices all at the same time in the same slide deck. This is one of my favorite activities to do virtually, actually. Austin, any thoughts?
No, I think this is really cool. Would it be difficult for somebody to make something like this on their own, or would you suggest trying to find a template somewhere?
Well, I don't think it would be difficult to make, of course, because I mean, this is just, this is a table in Google Slides, right? So I just added a table. However, it can be kind of time consuming. And so if there is a template, I would recommend, that would just be easier, because then you can take something and adapt it to your context.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we have one more in here, and then we have 3 more techniques, that I wanted to share. So let's present. Here. So again, this next one is a group brainstorm. This is really fun. This, again, we're doing through the slide presentation, okay? So Austin, what I'd like for you to do, I just wanted to make it full screen so everybody could see, but I'm gonna go out of my presentation again. I'd like for you to think about what should the next training topic be, and type in these boxes, type in one of those boxes what one training topic should be.
Okay.
I think normally we'd probably want a few more boxes, but and in this case, these are text boxes, so you can just double click in them. You don't have to create another box. You can just double click inside the box and start typing. Something like this. So this is a great way to brainstorm. Just like, here are all of our ideas, but it's also ideas we want to vote on. So Austin, what I want you to do is, we can each take 2 votes, and these smiley faces on the bottom can actually be we can drag and drop one onto the things we want to vote for. If you want to vote for both your smileys on the same topic, great. You can do whatever you want with your smileys.
Cool.
I'm gonna put my
Okay.
smiley there. That's what I'm voting for.
I like that one too.
So this is a way for you to get ideas and then also have your audience vote on a topic. It's a really fun way to, I think, a very interactive way, I should say, to get people moving. And again, like we mentioned earlier, have everybody's voice be heard. And in this case, it's completely anonymous. So everyone's voice is heard and it's anonymously. And it gives, this is a permanent record of that vote, so that helps you moving forward. So we know that we are looking for fun ways to engage students virtually.
One of the things I like about this is that if you're just having a meeting, it can be easy for the loudest voice to win. But in this case, everybody has equal footing in the choice for what the next training topic should be.
Exactly, exactly. There's different ways you could adapt this. Like in this case, it was, you know, this is what I went with, but it could be adapted in a lot of ways to really help hear everybody's voice, like I mentioned, and like you just said, Austin. It's even if somebody's camera shy, they can be interacting and engaging in this activity. And then the last piece of this, we have 2 activities for how to gather feedback. You could be gathering feedback on a meeting, on whatever topic you were looking for. You can use a slide deck, or you can use annotation tools. This first one is inside the slide deck, so I'll escape out. Austin, you can drag and drop, oops, you can drag and drop the smiley that most represents how, oh, I didn't change it for my work, but how this call has gone, so that I can have feedback on my presentation. And you're gonna see underneath these smileys, there's a different smiley up. So perfect. So, you know, copy and paste. Great, you got what you needed and enjoyed the format. I love that, thank you. But these are just like some ways to get feedback also on your presentation style. This next one, I'm actually gonna have us, Austin, go back to the annotation tool in Zoom. So I just wanna demonstrate also for the audience, you know, how you might do this with the Zoom annotation tool. You could do like, actually I should say, you could use this scale, of course, and have people annotate on here. And you would get something similar as having a box and seeing a lot of heart eyes, or do I have a lot of, you know, I didn't get what I need. But in this case, I just want to show another activity for feedback. What have you gained? How did you like the structure? And this would be an opportunity to use that annotation tool and a stamp and just be like, I got so many ideas. I love the structure, not at all. And then if you were doing this on a slideshow, you could have people add comments to that. Yep, and it ends up looking something, you know, like this. Hopefully like this. So the annotation tool is really fun, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to clear those and just wrap us up. Oh, I can't, that's right. I have to turn off annotation tools to move forward. Okay, so that was 10 activities for engaging in interactive virtual meetings. I know it was a lot of content and we went through it fairly quickly. So just this is a summary of the things that we talked about. We talked about how to use a chat for engagement. Another best practice would be to keep asking questions and have people drop in the chat. For example, during our warm-up, I said we could have 3 people share out verbally, but if you want to share, please type in the chat. Just keep referring to the chat. We did a warm-up, choose your favorite or choose how you're feeling. We did the open-ended questions. We brought up in the whiteboard and Austin drew a tree. We learned we can use the touch screen to draw on there. We did community building slides. We learned how familiar our audience was with the content scale. We looked at a stoplight reflection for some group thinking and strategizing. We did a group brainstorm and vote. We looked at a way to do feedback in slides. And we also did some annotated feedback using the annotation tool in Zoom. And so I hope that's it. I hope that this has the wheels spinning on all these ways that we can be building community during this time, really bringing in joy into our work and creating meetings that are not boring, but that are actually quite fun and interesting to attend.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that I can see now, and I hope that everybody else can see too, that meetings don't have to just be a boring transfer of information. A meeting can be a tool for building community. And that's, these tools are really amazing. I'm really impressed because I've seen a lot of these things done in person, like live in a big conference room,
Mhm.
but transferring them online into the digital space is a real accomplishment. So thank you for sharing these.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Um, yeah, it's just about getting creative, just thinking like, how can that activity work virtually? There's a lot more that can be done also with that shared slide deck. And if we bring in breakout spaces into these activities, can you even imagine the possibilities? Suddenly we can do like think, pair, share as an activity. We can do gallery walk as an activity because we're in a small group and we're able to like have these focused conversations and group discussions. So bringing that element and that tool in makes it go from what was already fun and engaging to like even more fun and engaging. So something to think about for those who have access to Zoom. And I wish we would have been able to demonstrate that here, but with only two of us, it wasn't possible.
We'll just have to use our imaginations on that one.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, Carin, I want to thank you for joining us in the Teacher Empowerment Summit today. Do you have any parting words of wisdom to share with the teachers? I know you've already shared so much, but is there any last piece of advice you'd like to put out there?
I think, it's a weird time. Uh, pour into your students the best you can and take care of yourself. Look for those connections with your colleagues. We all really need each other right now. And so um, just keep connecting and keep looking for those moments where you can express gratitude and where you can bring joy in because it's really important.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, we'll see you on the next Teacher Empowerment Summit video.
Bye, thank you.